And good morning. Thank you so much for coming back yet again to another Coffee and Conversations on this Wednesday morning. And Alexia, if you are here this morning, happy birthday and May the 4th be with you. I just had to say it. I'm really delighted this morning to have my guest, Christine Timms, on. Christine and I actually met through connecting on LinkedIn not too long ago, and I thought her story was super interesting and decided to bring her onto the show. So, Christine had a very successful financial advisor practice for 33 years. The last 23 or 24 years of that, she was always at the top of the house, Chairman's Club with Wood Gundy, and ran a book of about $400 million. So she's had an extremely successful career and retired 5 years ago, but didn't really retire 5 years ago, as some of us tend not to do. And so I really want to welcome Christine to the show, and we are going to talk about what she's been busy doing lately, which is publishing her three books, her three handbooks for a successful financial advisory practice. So, Christine, welcome.
To admit, the first 6 months when I retired, I was kind of lazy and did all sorts of little things around the house and didn't really get down to writing the books for about those 6 months.
I think that sounds wonderful, by the way.
Yeah.
6 months of doing nothing.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of things that I'd been kind of not getting around to, when you're really busy taking care of everybody and everything, you just leave a lot of things. And so they were nagging at me. So I got them done.
Yeah.
But then I got into the writing, and I had gathered a whole lot of stuff from my practice because I'd always felt I wanted to. In fact, one of the reasons I retired fairly young, 60 would be considered fairly young, I guess, was so that I would still, I think, have the energy to do books. And frankly, I was kind of surprised at, how challenging it was. And I really expected only to do one book for advisors and one book for clients.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started writing for the advisors, I thought, man, I can't put this all in one book. It'll be just too big a book. And so I decided to break it into the three and possibly a fourth, but I'll probably work on the client book before I do the fourth, if I even get to the fourth.
So what was let's back up to the why the books. I've got two of them here with me. With my Post-it notes on one of them, Business Models for Financial Advisors and Team Building for Financial Advisors. The third one is all around transitioning your book, transitioning clients in the retirement exit decision. Tell me the writing a book is no small undertaking. And so what was the passion? What was the impetus for writing these books?
Well, I really feel like people could use more financial advice. And it's, I just wanted to make it easier for advisors to do it. I wanted them to, maybe able to make most of their time and basically serve more clients so that more people can get advice, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to have to cut their client list, to be more productive. I want them to add to their client list to be more productive. So I thought, well, maybe if I can, help them learn quickly the things that I learned the hard way, that, maybe it would end up in more people, more Canadians getting advice,
And I think that's so important. The statistics are clear that people who work with a financial advisor save more and pay less taxes. And so it's a very, it's a great business to be in because you really are serving the needs, not just of retirement savings, but people's dreams. And I think people forget what an altruistic business it actually is. You're helping
Well, yeah,
Canadians.
really. You should. My ultimate goal was always give my clients peace of mind,
Mm.
so that they didn't have to worry because they knew I was doing it. And I remember that she used me because I took the worry out of investing.
Right.
And that's what good advisors do. That's what most advisors do, and that's the thing that those commercials miss. When they suggest that you don't want to have to pay any of the fees that go with an advisor. So
Right. Right. So let's talk about the books. And you said something interesting a moment ago. Uh, you wanted to help advisors not make some of the mistakes or bypass some of the mistakes that you had made. So, I mean, everybody loves to hear about people's success, but everybody loves to hear about the mistakes they've made
true,
too. So let's hear
true.
about some of those.
Okay. Well, the biggest thing that I learned the hard way and actually took 20 years to learn was the most efficient structure for my team, because I did add gradually. I mean, I started with a quarter of a person for an assistant, so I was
Hmm.
sharing with three other people, and gradually grew to basically six and a half plus me in the team. And when I started adding those first few, well, really right at the beginning period, and for far too long, I was kind of delegating sort of ad hoc.
Hmm.
Like something came in the door, I thought, oh, I don't need to do that, I'll give this to somebody, and I was doing that. So I was spending a lot of my time figuring out who should do stuff. Well, if you've got a good structure, it's kind of automatic. It's
Hmm.
obvious who does what, and it doesn't even need to go through you. So I started with that ad hoc, approach, and then I thought, well, this isn't working quite right. Maybe what I should do is sort of make people in my team specialists. So I had somebody who was a marketing, someone who was financial planning or estate planning, someone who was admin. Kind of always stuck with the admin person because this business has always got
Yeah.
enough for one per person to do all the admin. So that went for a while, but then I kind of realized, but then that means that the only person on the team that has the whole picture of the client is me, and which meant there was really
Hmm.
only one relationship with the client, and that was me. And that was it still meant that I was still doing a whole bunch of stuff that didn't really need to be. So I started using what I would call the associate structure,
Hmm.
uh, where um, where I'd share that relationship with probably the most senior members of my team, and so that client knew that they could call them or me and probably get the whatever they need. And I included that person in the meetings with me, which made those meetings a whole lot easier because then they were taking the notes, they were doing the follow up, and they built that relationship with the client.
Hmm.
But it took me forever to get there. And then the final bit of that associate structure was to have, when the team got big, I would have that senior person kind of had their own assistant. So now the client had the relationship with that associate, and that associate had the obvious person to delegate to for stuff that didn't need them either.
Hmm.
And so that worked perfectly. But you still had members of the team who were better at technology or better at marketing, and they would sort of pick up the ball in those areas, but they would still be taking care of their sort of share of the group of the clientele.
Right. It's it's not unique to financial services or building a financial advisory practice because I see it with other business owners, but I've seen it a lot with financial advisors. There's this inflection point, I think, where um, you just you either decide that you're going to be the core person and wrap, more junior people around you, or you're going to start to, let go and really build something of significance.
Hmm.
But until you decide to really build something of significance, there's a bit of a trap down on the lower end where you're not really giving full authority or relationship to other people on your team. And sometimes I see that from the perspective of maybe a little bit of fear. They're going to run away with the client, or are they going to be able to serve the client as well as I can serve the client, etc. So your experience and what you recommend in the
Mhm.
book. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, there's a bit of that fear out there. There's always the fear that no one else is going to do it as well as you. But reality is that's not true. There's whole bunch of people on my team that were a whole lot better at a lot of things than I was. My strength was really the relationship and making the final decisions. And of course, I only had so much time anyway.
Mhm.
But that fear of giving up the relationship is certainly true. But reality is you don't really have to give up the relationship. You just need to share it. And I
Mm.
never totally gave up the relationship. I always made it very clear to clients that I was always there, and I was really in most meetings. I mean, the only times when I wasn't even in the meetings was maybe it was the next generation and the younger uh, family member was going to be more comfortable with the younger member of my team anyway. But really, most of the time, I was always there. The client knew I was always there, even if they would talk to the associate, maybe 5 times as much as they spoke to me. But I was usually in the meetings. But there's a few other things that you can do to sort of ease yourself into that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would never hire somebody and make them an associate. I tend to hire them right out of university.
Mm.
So they came up through my system, which meant they weren't really exposed to clients until they knew what they were doing a bit better, which was good from a quality service point of view.
Mhm.
But it also meant that I got to know them and figure out whether or not they were really in line with my thinking and whether they were really trustworthy, and you build a relationship with them one on one. If you have a good relationship with your associate, it's far less likely that they're going to, run off with your clientele.
Right.
Uh, so anyway, so you build that up by basically delegating a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff so that they're not really contacting your clients until you decide that you can trust them to do that.
Mhm.
Um, so, they can do a lot. They can do research, they can prepare for appointments, they can do the nitty gritty of the financial plans. They can do an awful lot before they really start, developing that relationship where the client will actually ask them for advice.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking uh, when a lot of advisors start out, and a lot of service-oriented businesses, I classify real estate in the same bucket. Uh, it's you, and um, you didn't get into the business necessarily to be a people leader and be the CEO of an organization, right? You kind of start off thinking it's going to be
Mhm.
you, and maybe you'll have an assistant, and so there again, there's like this sort of realization at some point in your business. You have to make a decision, don't you, in
Mhm.
terms of how you want to grow
Mhm.
and what that looks like.
Well, yeah, and there's a different set of skills that go along with managing people.
Yes.
But I always found that was kind of fun. I mean, you can't get bored in a business where you're always learning to do new things, and the more people you're working with, the more you're learning. The person fresh out of university is going to teach you something if you've got your ears open and you're listening.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wanted to make that easier for clients too, or for advisors too. So I built a spreadsheet, and actually I built it primarily when I was practicing. I did build this one. It's a sort of a distribution of activities to your team. So you list your team and you list all the duties. And I organized the duties in a way that would make sense with the rest of how I did the business. And so I created that distribution of duties list to make it easier for people to think of things that they could delegate. And actually, your team gets bigger. you kind of review that with your most senior member, and together you're figuring out what should be delegated. I
Hmm.
actually created that distribution list for both of those structures we talked about earlier, because I know that some people are going to stick with that specialist structure because it works for them.
Yeah.
So I've done that template in both the associate structure format and the specialist structure format.
Yeah,
Um,
and I've looked at these. These are in the appendix of the book, the Team Building for Financial Advisors book. And I've never seen anything, as comprehensive as this. So it's really amazing. The work that
well, I've
you
tried to open it up to everybody, so it's more than
Yeah.
just what I would have done. It's things that I know that people need to do, and with the know your client thing, or actually know your product, and the client reform stuff, it's I think it's important for people to realize, you can really delegate a lot of those things that you've got to write down more than you did before. You're probably doing it all before, but you weren't really documenting it as much as compliance would like these days. And but if you can delegate a lot of that, then you should.
Yeah. So, talking about the younger advisors, it seems to me with all of the discussion around intergenerational wealth transfer, et cetera, that it's really quite a brilliant strategy to be hiring, the folks straight out of school. They're getting their license. They're going to be the person who's taking over those younger generation relationships at some point in the business.
Well, sure. And your team, no matter how good you are at picking people and whatever, it's gonna turn over, okay?
Mhm.
Because people in university, they don't know for sure what they want to do until they kind of get exposed to it. So you have to kind of expect that. And even some of your more senior people will leave you, but all that does is give you an opportunity to promote the newer people on your team. So my two of the members of my team were my successors, and of course, in a 33-year career, I don't know how many assistants I've had over the years, but those two were both hired out of university, and had been with me long enough to prove themselves and build relationships. And I had clients say to me, "Man, I'm so relieved because I knew you're going to retire someday, and I just didn't know, what I was going to do. But you're leaving me with somebody who I already trust, and they already know me, and they already know all the things I want, and
Mhm.
it's just such a great relief. And so it really is the ideal way to pass on your business, but you can't count on it. In fact, I was rather shocked about it was like a year and a half before my retirement date, and my most senior associate said, "You know what? I've decided I'm moving to Bangkok." I'm going, "Whoa, okay. I guess you're." And he says, "I'll be leaving Wood Gundy and going to Bangkok." I'm going, "Wow." So the best laid plans. But I had three associates, and of course the other two. We thought, "Oh, that's good. I can take care of those." We're splitting the client amongst two instead of three, and of course
Yeah.
because they backed each other up over the years, they were they had a year to get really close to those ones that they had sort of small relationships with, and so it all worked out really well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the surprises that can happen, but um, it it's tell me, you've got a great structure. You decide to retire, not you specifically, but the senior advisor decides to retire. But it's not always that you're passing the business on to the associates in your book. You are also sometimes looking at selling your book to somebody else.
Mhm.
And so it seems to me that having these strong models is just going to give you that much more value, and an
For sure.
easier transition out. I mean, I'm hearing about, I'm going to be working with this person for 5 years. I've bought into their business, and That's a very long transition. I would think that
Mhm.
some of the things that you talk about in your books, especially in the transitioning and exiting um, book, that you can shortcut some of that. You can get out
Well, if every
faster when you're ready to retire.
Yeah, I mean, the longer time you have, the more you can do to set things up. 5 years, well, reality is those two successors of mine worked with me for more than 5 years, both, right?
Yeah.
But they were learning the business and figuring out where they wanted to be, and so it was just kind of a natural thing. But reality is that it's probably way less than 50% that have that successor in their team.
Hmm.
And what the potential successors need to do is basically just kind of mingle casually with each other. So you just have conversations, about how you do things, and or what do you think of this investment? What do you think of that investment? Or what do you think about this strategy for getting clients? And what do you do for your clients? So you understand each other, and so that's gets you. So you found somebody that you like, but you also really, in my mind, should once you've got to that far, you like the person, then you need to really get down to the nitty gritty and know exactly what you do for each other. And so I developed another template. So it's a sort of a checklist template where I call it the articulate your business is really what it is. And really what it does is it goes through the various components of a business model and says how you do it. And there's lots of uses for that thing besides just telling whoever you're looking to take over from, or whoever's looking, to sell their practice. Reality is it means you identify all the things you're doing, and it's a form of a way to analyze what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it goes right through everything, like how do you like who are your clients, for example, like who are your
Mhm.
sustainable relationships, and what groups do they fall into, and what do your best clients really expect from you. So there's how do you pick your investments, what kind of things can you do, with those, for those investments? How do you narrow it down? Financial planning. I mean, everybody can say, "Oh, I do financial planning for my clients," but boy, there's a lot of different things that you can do in the scope of financial planning, and
Yeah.
some of which you want to do, and some of which you don't want to do, and some of which you want to send to somebody else to do. So, and then of course, there's how do you charge your clients? Because even
Mhm.
within the same firm, you could be charging your clients different. And how do you communicate with your clients? Because you want to be able to, even if you decide, okay, you are as good a match as you're going to be, because nobody's going to tick all the boxes exactly the same.
Yeah.
The successor wants to know, okay, what do I have to do to make sure that those clients feel like they're not losing something because they've got me as an advisor instead of the guy they've had for the last 30 years.
Hmm.
So so our business model really sets you up really well for that.
Yeah.
But like I said, and that's something I did after I retired. Because it's so much to do. It's so much work to create one of those things. But I thought, when I was doing that, the book about the retirement exit decision, I thought, people really need to know what the other guy's doing, and how do I make that easy for advisors? So I
Yeah.
created that template so they can just tick 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 instead of having to think about, well, what is I do, and write it down. I mean, that would take hours and hours and hours. um,
Well, and it seems to me that if you are thinking about buying a book, so maybe, there are people on the other side of the business, asset management, decide to become an advisor, move to the wealth side of the business. These books would be really terrific resources. I should probably show um, I have a picture of all three of them here. Um, that I'll just try to send live here. My machine seems to be slow, but there we go. Here are the three books. So business models, team building, and transitioning and retirement exit decisions. So, if you're already in business, if you're just growing your business, uh, you can get ahead by understanding some of the things, some of the successes of the bigger firms, the bigger teams have done, through reading these books. If you're
Yeah,
looking
but
at
you
five,
don't have to be big. You don't have to be big. I mean,
okay,
reality is you got to start somewhere. I started with a quarter of an assistant, right?
right, yes,
And really, I mean, there's things in there about how you train your assistant. How do you hire an assistant? What do you look for?
hmm
When do you add a team member? All of that is very helpful for people who are just, you know, frankly afraid that they make that very big first step, which is kind of hire your own first, full-time assistant. Because I got to tell you, it took a lot, higher percentage of my pay to hire that first assistant than it did to hire the fifth
yes,
and sixth,
yeah,
uh, and that was the toughest decision. But the longer you wait to do that, I mean, you're just capping your success. You're going to plateau until you really start adding to your team.
exactly, exactly. We only have 4 minutes left, so I want to make sure people know how to get these books. But why don't you tell us what's a question that you're most often asked?
Well, the one that I'm probably asked the most is when do you know you need to add a team member?
Mm,
And that question, like you were talking about earlier, is kind of applicable to just about any business. And the obvious one is, well, you're getting tired and looking, you're going to get burnt out. But you can talk with your team if you already have a team, and you got to think about, well, are you unhappy or are your clients unhappy with the level of service? That could be quickness, that could be quality, quickness and response. Are you doing a bunch of things where you feel like, man, somebody else should be doing this? This doesn't need my
mm,
expertise. Uh, you know, are you making a proper use of your time? And are you so busy doing the day-to-day stuff that you can't let your brain think about other things that you should be doing for your
mm,
clients or to find new clients? Or you have the time to think of it, but then you don't have the time to implement and get those ideas done.
yeah.
If you can answer yes to any of those kind of questions, and I think there's a few more in the book, then you probably should be looking at adding a team member.
hmm
And yeah, it might cost you. You might feel like it's hurting you in the beginning, but if you don't, then you're just always going to be whatever level you are now,
Yeah.
and be frustrated and burnt out. And I had a lot of peace of mind when I had my team, because I could just go away, and I knew they'd call me if they needed to, and I could relax more because it
Mm,
didn't all depend on me. So
yeah. You mean you could take a vacation?
yes. And
Wow.
I still, I always still kind of kept sort of in touch, but reality is I knew I didn't have to.
Right.
And so I could just, go and be a lazy person and read a book or walk on the beach or something like that.
Sounds very nice. Maybe someday we'll have warmth and sunshine right here in Ontario. We can do that.
Yeah.
So again, here are the books. So all of these books are available on Amazon. I would assume Amazon.com in the States as well, but they're really written
Yeah,
for.
and Indigo chapters. They're
Mhm.
also all in Kindle format or ebook format. And that was a fun experience, creating the audiobook.
Oh,
So,
great.
so the transitioning and retirement book is on audio, uh, um, and
Wonderful.
that's through Amazon too. Audible, I guess it's called. So yeah, and also
Oh,
people are
right.
welcome to contact me through my website, christinetims.com.
hmm Yeah.
And
And I
that's where they
see.
can get the templates, is christinetims.com. And they can also obviously contact me through LinkedIn.
Wonderful.
And I would
Well,
encourage it.
you know what, Chris? This has been so nice chatting with you this morning and talking about this. It's important work that you do, even in your retirement. It's very important work that you do. It's so amazing to have these kinds of resources available. There really aren't that many. And yes, they are absolutely written for the financial advisor, but team building especially is a book that can be, if you've got the kind of mind that can sort of work with something outside the box. There are many service type industries that can benefit from this. So thank you again, Christine, for being my guest. 2 weeks from now, um, a bit of change in direction. Irene Pace, she is a nutritionist and is going to help get us all ready for spring and summer, but for the last time, because she's got a very specific system that really helps you stop this seasonal waffling thing and just simply get you on the path to the health that you really want for long term. So that's next time. And thanks again, Chris, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for
Thank
showing
you
up
for
this
having me.
morning, as always.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.